Elwyn Brooks White. Stuart Литтл. Elwyn Brooks White. Stuart Литтл. Домашнее чтение, английский клуб. Уровень Pre-Intermediate. Iris Press. Chapter 1. The Strange Brother. Mr. Littl and his family lived in New York City. Mr. Littl worked in an office. His wife, Mrs. Littl, took care of the house. She was a kind woman and I liked animals. She kept a white cat called Snowball. She also liked to play with the piano. Mr. and Mrs. Littl had a son called George, who went to school and liked to play ping pong. He wanted to have a little brother very much. So once, when George went to school, Mr. and Mrs. Littl went to the orphanage. "How will you choose the boy to adopt?" asked George, and warned them. "I want a little brother, not a big one." There were so many wonderful children in the orphanage that the Littles didn't know what to do. Suddenly, they heard a thin voice. "You have come to the right place if you want to adopt a child." This voice belonged to a little mouse who told the Littles everything about every child in the orphanage. Mr. and Mrs. Littl listened to him with great interest. "Isn't it marvelous? You know everything about these children," they said. "Yes, I do, because I live here. My name is Stuart. I'm also an orphan, but nobody wants to adopt me." At this very moment, the Littles realized they wanted to adopt the little mouse and nobody else. When George came home from school, he was disappointed to see a little mouse instead of a little brother. But soon, George and Stuart made friends. The cat called Snowball wasn't just disappointed, he was enraged. No wonder, a mouse became his master. Mr. and Mrs. Littl decided to introduce Stuart to every member of their family. Stuart was happy to be part of this big family and to have a lot of loving aunts and uncles. Выражения и слова к тексту. Mr. Littl. Mr. Littl. Сокращение от мистер. New York City. Город Нью-Йорк. Американцы обычно добавляют слово «city», чтобы отличить город Нью-Йорк от штата Нью-Йорк. Mrs. Сокращение от mistress. Mrs. Took care of the house. Вести хозяйство. Called Snowball. По кличке Снежок. George. Джордж. Orphanage. Сиротский приют. Детский дом. To adopt. Усыновить, усыновлять. The Littles. Чета Литлов. A thin voice. Тоненький голосок. Is it marvelous? Поразительно. Stuart. Stuart. At this very moment. В этот самый момент. Прилагательное very at this very moment предполагается как в этот самый момент, в ту же секунду. Chapter 2. In the Drain. The house where the family lived stood near a park in New York City. In the mornings, the sun looked into the house through the east window and all the family got up very early. Stuart was a great help to his parents and to his brother George. He was so small that he could do any useful things and was ready to help. One day, Mrs. Littl went to wash the bathtub and lost a ring from her finger. It rolled into the bathtub and fell down the drain. "What shall I do?" she cried with tears in her eyes. "You must take a hairpin and try to fish the ring out," said George. So Mrs. Littl found a piece of string and a hairpin, tied the hairpin to the string, and for half an hour fished for the ring. But it was stuck in the drain and she could not find it. "What luck!" asked Mr. Little, who at that moment called into the bathroom. "No luck at all," his wife answered. "It's so dark there, I can't fish my ring out." "Let us send Stuart down the drain," said Mr. Little. "Would you like to try, Stuart?" "Yes, I would," Stuart answered. "But I must put on my old pants first. I think it is wet in the drain." So Stuart put on his old pants and prepared to fish for the ring. He took the string and gave one end off to his father. Then he tied the other end round his waist. "When I pull the string 3 times, you must pull me up," he said. So Mr. Little put Stuart down the drain. In a minute Stu pulled the string 3 times, and his father carefully pulled him up. And everybody saw Stuart with a smile on his lips and the ring around his neck. Mrs. Little kissed Stuart and thanked him. "Oh, my brave little son," she said proudly. "How was it down there?" asked Mr. Little. He always liked to know about places to which he could not go himself. "It was all right," said Stuart. But everybody thought it was not very pleasant down there because Stuart came back very dirty and had to wash himself quickly. Выражение слова к тексту. Was a great help. Fished for the ring. Was a great help. Много помогал. Fished for the ring. Стараться выудить кольцо. What luck? Каковы успехи? Как успехи? No luck at all. Никаких успехов. Let us send Stuart down the drain. Давайте спустим Стюарта в сточную трубу. Would you like to try? Хочешь попробовать? I think it is wet. Or I think that it's wet. Я думаю, там сыро. How was it down there? Как там внизу? Как там было внизу? It was all right. Было нормально. Неплохо. Chapter 3. Home Problems. The Littles liked to play ping-pong, but when they played it, the little balls always rolled on the chairs, sofas, and radiators. So the players had to stop playing and begin to look for the balls. Very soon, Stuart learned to find them quicker than anyone else in the family. He found them on the chairs and hot radiators and pushed them with his mind. It was hard work, but it was difficult for Stuart to roll a ball around. But he liked it. The Littles had a piano in the dining room, and Mrs. Little liked to play it in evenings. It was a good piano, but one of the keys stuck sometimes and did not work properly. That was so unpleasant. Mrs. Little said, "It is all because of the bad weather." But we must say that his keys didn't work even on the bright days. George always got very angry when he played the piano and the keys stuck. To tell the truth, he did not play the piano very well even on the days when the key worked properly, but still he got angry. One day George said, "Let us put Stuart inside the piano." You know that inside every piano there are a lot of soft hammers. And when you play the piano, each hammer strikes a difficult chord and you hear music. So George said, "You must stay inside, Stuart, and push up the key every time it sticks." And he put Stuart inside the piano. It was hard work, because the noise inside the piano was terrible, and Stuart was quite deaf after half an hour. Besides, he was afraid that the hammer might hit him on the head. But he liked this work just the same, because he liked music. Mr. and Mrs. Little often spoke about Stuart when he was not around. To have a mouse in the family was a very unusual thing. Stuart was so small that sometimes his parents did not know what to do with him. He must know that he's a mouse, they decided. Mr. Little said that they must not mention the word mice in their conversation. He made Mr. Little tear out a page from a songbook with the song 3 Blind Mice. "He mustn't know too much about mice," said Mr. Little. "He will be afraid that somebody will cut off his tail with a knife." Such things made Children dream bad dreams when they go to bed at night. Yes, said Mrs. Littell. And we must also think about the poem, Was the Night Before Christmas. Do you remember it? And she showed her husband the book. 'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through all the house not a creature was training, not even a mouse. That's right, said Mr. Little. But what shall we say when we come to that line in the poem? We shall have to sing something. We can't simply say, 'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was training. There is no rhythm here. What about blues? Said Rogue. They decided that blues was the best word, so Mr. Little rubbed out the word mouse from the poem and wrote the word louse instead, and Stuart always thought that the poem went this way. 'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was training, not even a louse. But there was one more thing that worried Mr. and Mrs. Little. There was a mouse hole in the kitchen. Mr. Little did not know where this hole led to. He was afraid that one day Stuart might get into it. After all, he looks like a mouse, and all mice like to go into holes, he said to his wife. Слова и выражения к главе. The Littles, вся семья Литлов, had to stop playing, должны были прекращать игру. With all his might, изо всех сил. It is all because of. Все из-за. Got very angry, быть очень сердитым, становиться быть сердитым. To tell the truth. По правде говоря, every time it sticks, всякий раз, когда она застрянет. Just the same, все равно. When he was not around, когда его не было поблизости. Made Mrs. Little tear out a page. Заставил миссис Литтл вырвать страницу. Песенка. Имеется в виду известная английская детская песенка. Three blind mice, see how they run. They all run after the farmer's wife, who cut off their tails with a carving knife. Did you see such a thing in your life as three blind mice? Dream bad dreams. Видеть дурные сны. It was the night before Christmas. Была ночь накануне Рождества. All through the house not a creature was training, not even a mouse. В целом доме не слышно было, не шевелились ни одного живого существа, даже мышки. What about? Как насчет? Me went this way звучало так. One more. Еще одна. Where this hole led to? Куда ведет эта нора? One day. Когда-нибудь. Chapter 4. Stuart's morning. Stuart was an early riser. He always was the first person up in the morning. He liked the quiet rooms with books on the shelves, the morning light. In winter, it was dark when he climbed out of the bed. It was very cold, and he stood in his nightshirt and did his exercises. Every morning he touched his toys 10 times. His brother, George, always said it kept the stomach muscle firm. After his exercises, Stuart took a towel and started for the bathroom. He had to go through the long dark hall, past his mother's and father's and George's room. Of course, the bathroom was dark too, but there was a long string tied to the switch. If Stuart pulled it, all his might, his able to turn on the light. There was also a tiny rope ladder tied to the wash base, hands and face, and brushed their teeth. One day George promised to build Stuart a special small wash basin, only 1 inch high. But George always promised to build something and then forgot about it. So every morning Stuart climbed the rope ladder to the big wash basin. He had a doll's toothbrush and a doll's cake of soap, a doll's towel and a doll's comb with which he could comb his whiskers. He carried these things in his pocket, and when he reached the basin base, he took them out and put them near him. Then he turned the water on. For such a small fellow, it was a difficult problem. One day he discussed it with his father. I can't turn the faucet on properly, because when I'm doing it, my feet are in the air. Yes, I know, his father answered. That's the bulb trouble. We must do something about it. George, who liked to listen to other people's conversation, said that they must build a special pot for Stuart. He took a wooden board, a hammer, and some nails, and started to make a terrible noise in the bathroom. But he soon became interesting and full else and disappeared, leaving the tools all over the floor. Maybe I can hit the faucet with something and in this way turn on, said Stuart. Mr. Little gave him a very small wooden hammer, and Stuart started for the bathroom to try. He swung his hammer 3 times around his head and hit the faucet. When a thin stream of water began to flow, Stuart brushed his teeth and washed his face and hands. He liked it very much. And now, every morning his parents and brother George, who was still sleeping in the bed, could hear the loud blink, 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 blink of Stuart's hammer. It told them that it was time to get up. Слова и выражения к тексту. Was an early riser. Любил рано вставать. Was the first person up. Вставал первым. It kept the stomach muscles firm. Это укрепляет мышцы живота. Started for. Отправлялся в. Tied to the switch. Привязанный к выключателю. A small fellow. Малыш. That's the word trouble. В этом-то была вся беда. We must do something about it. Тут что-то нужно придумать. Became interesting in something else. Заинтересовался чем-то другим. Leaving the tools all over the floor. Разбросав инструменты по всему полу. In this way. Таким образом. We're still asleep. Еще спали. Pling. Тук-тук. Звук подражания.